Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good from here? Do you need to spread out any more? You know, I'll make sure that you can hear me. Now, I like to let everybody know that this was the last home of Jefferson Davis. So he came here as kind of a retirement home to work on his memoirs and writing his books and just enjoying this peaceful location. Now, hopefully everybody knows that he was the president of the Confederacy. That's what he is most well known for. However, that was 4 years out of his life, and he lived for 81 years. So I'm going to give you a little history on some of the rest of his life and let you know how he came to call this his home. Jefferson Davis was born in 1808 in Fairview, Kentucky. And when he was born, he was the last out of 10 children. Now, his mother gave him the middle name of Finis, which is Latin for final. So I think his mom kind of had a clear message there, right? When he was about 5 years old, his family actually moved down to Vicksburg, Mississippi, so pretty close to the Memphis area. And he went back and forth between schools in Kentucky and Mississippi getting his education. Well, in his younger teen years, he decided he wasn't really crazy about going to school anymore. And so he told his dad, "I think I'm done with school. I'm educated enough." Well, his father said, "That's fine, son. I've got plenty of work in my fields for you to do." So Jefferson Davis went out to the fields to work for 3 days. And at that point, he decided, you know what, maybe school isn't so bad after all. So he decided to continue his education. Well, when his father passed, his brother became the patriarch of the family. Now that's his portrait to the left of the back here, if you can kind of see it. Now he was 21 years older than Jefferson Davis and the oldest out of all the 10 children. And he had his career as being a lawyer. Jefferson Davis looked up to him and he wanted to be a lawyer just like his brother. But Joseph had other plans for him and got him an interview with West Point Academy, where he was accepted and would go on to graduate a few years later and begin his career with the military. While he was in the military, he fought under Zachary Taylor, who would become our 12th president. Well, Zachary Taylor had a daughter, Sarah Knox Taylor. And when Jefferson Davis met her, it was like love at first sight for them. Well, Zachary Taylor wasn't very keen on the idea of letting Jefferson Davis marry his daughter because of his career in the military. Zachary Taylor himself had had that same career and had seen what it had done to his family and didn't want the same life for his daughter. So he actually rejected Jefferson Davis's request for his daughter's hand in marriage, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Well, Jefferson Davis decided that his love was too strong to just let go of Sarah Knox, so he quit his career in the military just to be with her. And at that point, Zachary Taylor said, "I will give my blessing, you can marry my daughter." And they were married for a blissful 3 months before they both contracted malaria. And unfortunately, Sarah Knox Taylor lost her life due to that. And he lost partial sight in his left eye. Well, at that point, Jefferson Davis was very sad about that loss, and he actually ended up deciding that a career in politics was the direction that he wanted to go. And he ended up going up to Washington, D.C., and spending a lot of time in the Library of Congress there. And at that point, he became really into politics and started his career in that, becoming a 2-time senator for Mississippi, becoming a congressman, becoming the Secretary of War, and a founding father of the Smithsonian Institute. He also helped implement the aqueduct system that's still in use in Washington, D.C. today. Well, when he was the senator, and he really didn't want to go with the succession. Mississippi had other ideas. They went ahead and succeeded, and from there, it was the Civil War. That was 1861 until 1865, and we kind of know how that went, right? Well, in 1865, when Jefferson Davis was captured, they had thrown him in prison, and they tried to build a case against him for treason. However, they realized That was no good, and after being kept in horrible conditions for 2 years, they finally released him. Well, when Jefferson Davis was released, they revoked his citizenship, so he became a non-citizen of the United States. That meant a lot of things, but one thing that it meant for certain was that he couldn't own land in the United States. Well, he decided to leave, and he actually went overseas. His youngest daughter, Winnie, was in Germany in a finishing school along with his wife, so he spent a little time there. He spent a little time in other places in Europe, in England, and even in Canada. When he finally came back down to the United States in about 1876, he started an insurance business in Memphis, but that didn't take off. And at that point, he decided, I would like to go ahead and start my writing, and maybe I should go ahead and retire. And that's what brings him to Beauvoir. So I'll kind of pause there on how he came to be at Beauvoir to let you know how Beauvoir came to be, right? Now, if you'll notice those portraits to the right of the door back there, that's James Brown and his wife, Sophronia. They came here in 1848 from Madison County, Mississippi. James Brown was extremely wealthy and just kind of looking to show off and figured a summer home was a great way to do that. So he chose this location for that. He also chose this location due to it being between New Orleans and Mobile, the big ports. And with him having a lumber business, he figured it'd be an easy way to distribute that lumber. By 1850, James Brown had over 600 acres in this area, and then he started construction on the home. This is known as a Louisiana raised cottage. With it being raised, it helps keep the home cool more than anything else. I know you'd think it'd be for floodwaters, but not so much. It's actually to keep the home cool. Now, the other design of the home to keep it cool, the high ceilings. They're about 14.5 foot. And then they actually put vents above all the doors in the back and vents in both of these closets here. Now, with the home being so cold underneath, that nice sea breeze would blow that cold air from underneath the home, push the hot air into the high ceilings and out through all the vents. I call it 1800s air conditioning, right? They probably would have kept all the windows open as well, and those are known as triple sash. You can drop them from the top, you can raise them from the bottom, or when you lift all three, it creates about a 7-foot entryway. Now, that was probably part of the other showing off that Mr. Brown wanted to do. You were taxed on windows in your home. Well, with all of these windows, glass was very expensive back then, not easy to come by in the first place. But then on top of that, you were taxed for it too. So if you'll notice, you see all the glass throughout the home. Yeah, he wanted to pay those taxes and show off that wealth. Mr. Brown also decided to build the home out of cypress. Cypress grows in water, so great building material for this humid climate. He didn't have to worry about the wood warping or rotting and bugs getting to it. They will stay away from cypress. Now, all of the home is cypress except for the floors. The floors are made out of pine. And they get that nice dark color from linseed oil. Mr. Brown also decided that he would build the 2 cottages that are on either side of the home. So that cottage was their guest cottage. However, a Methodist minister would ride into town so often and stay there, they named it the Circuit Rider Cottage for him. And then on the other side of the home, the Browns put that cottage up as a schoolhouse for their 13 children. Wow. Now, in later years, when Jefferson Davis first moved down to the property, he actually stayed out in that cottage. Yeah, like 13 kids and no TVs back then. I don't really blame him for finding another way to keep him busy, right? Now, the Browns stayed here for 15 years, and at that point, Mr. Brown passed away, and the house was sold at auction for $3,000. Yeah. Now, that would be roughly about $70,000 today. So 600 acres and a 5,000 square foot under roof house, pretty good deal, right? Definitely couldn't pay that for it today. And the man that bought the home never even visited it before he sold it 3 months later. So I call him a house flipper. Not really important to the history, right? When he sold it, it went to Samuel and Sarah Dorsey for $3,500. And they just bought the home as their retirement, summer getaway, and they didn't have any children. And they enjoyed the home for a couple of years before Mr. Dorsey passed. Well, when he did, Sarah decided she loved the home and the location, so she stayed here. And she's actually the one that invited Jefferson Davis to come to the property. She had heard in 1877 that he was looking to write his memoirs and had always considered Mississippi to be his home. And without being able to own land in the United States, she reached out and offered to rent the schoolhouse cottage to him. He came down and saw the property, thought it was beautiful and peaceful, so he moved in. And he was actually out there until 1879. That year, Miss Dorsey offered to sell the home to the Davis family, but she knew that he couldn't own land, so she had to get around that factor. Put his name, but also his youngest daughter, Winnie Davis, on the deed. And she also gave the Davis family 5 years to pay off $5,500 to be split up into 3 installments. Now that would be about $150,000 in today's times that he agreed to pay for the home. Still a pretty good deal. Well, he signed it, the deed, made that first payment, and about 6 months later, when Miss Dorsey was living in New Orleans, she passed away. Well, Miss Dorsey had cancer but had kept it a secret. So this was very unexpected for the Davis family, and they're going, well, what do we do now? We still owe for the home. Well, in her will that she had made out about a year prior, Miss Dorsey had already gifted Beauvoir to the Davis family. But she had kept that a secret as well because she knew Jefferson Davis wasn't the type of man that would accept the home as a gift. She knew he wouldn't want to be seen like he was getting something for nothing. And he made the other 2 payments that were due on the home. So even though it was gifted to him, he still bought it. Now you guys might wonder, well, where did those payments go to? Some estranged family members that were not very happy when they found out that Jefferson Davis was not only gifted Beauvoir, when her will came out, she actually gifted them all of her money and all of her properties. Yeah, and she was pretty wealthy, you know, so that was a good bit of money for them, and those family members were not excited when they found out they were getting nothing. So they took Jefferson Davis to court, and they tried to have the will thrown out, but Miss Dorsey made sure that wouldn't happen, and I guess she knew those family members pretty well because she had left a note behind for them, and that was the only thing that they were left with. And the note basically stated that she had done everything that she could for them while she was living, so she didn't owe them anything in death. I'm like, oh, truth kind of hurts, right? Yeah. But at least Miss Dorsey was prepared, and she knew what would happen. And Jefferson Davis, she did. But that's since been turned into a hotel room. So they removed all the furnishings that belonged to Margaret and placed them in this back bedroom as a memorial to her. Do you guys have questions so far?
Did her marriage go to Rio? When did that happen?
So he was bedrooms to the dining rooms.
Was the kitchen get separate for heating, because we did heat up the house?
Yes, and then also, fires. I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't want to repair the whole house and use the hand tools either. Yeah, let's just do one.
They're talking about drinking it up, I was really like,
Like the house that has none.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
this
'cause
is.
it was-
Besides them. So when the Mississippi Division of the Sons of Confederate Veterans offered her $10,000, she agreed to that. And her conditions were, if there was a wife, widow, or veteran that needed a home, they could come to Beauvoir. And then when that was no longer needed, we would turn this into a memorial to honor her husband. From 1903 until 1957, this kind of operated like a veteran's home. Now, they didn't live in the house. This was used more like their clubhouse, but they built barracks on the property for all the veterans, wives, widows to live in. There was a men's and women's hospital. There was a chapel, even a store. And they housed around 2,000 wives, widows, and veterans during that time. In 1957, the last widows moved to a nursing home. Shortly after, this was turned into the memorial that we show today. The SCV is still who owns the property, so it is privately owned. I always like to thank everyone for coming to see us. As long as I have people to share the history with, I can continue to do that, so thank you.